right. Hey guys, Mr. Kyle, Myers Mathematics, and let's just jump right into it. This is mixture word problems. So just word problems that have to do with mixing things. That's literally what it sounds like. Let's look at this first question here and jump right on in. Let's see. 2 meters cubed of soil. All right. So what is? Let's pause there for a second. 2 meters cubed. If that looks like that throws you off a little bit, that's just a way to say that it's volume. So it's a volume of soil. It doesn't really matter too much what the units are unless the units are different. So that's the key. Whenever they're giving you all these units like meters cubed or kilograms or whatever, the big thing with units is if the units are all the same, then you're good. If the units are different, then you gotta make them the same. And usually you just look at what they want for an answer, and if they specify the units that they want in the answer, then, go with that. And if they don't, then, just whatever's easier, I guess. So, anyways, 2 meters cubed, and then if you kind of skip down to the next line here, 6 meters cubed. That just tells me I don't need to convert anything, so I don't need to worry about the units. Right? So it's just 2 and 6. Right? So you can just ignore the units. 2 of soil, so two things of soil containing 35% sand was mixed into 6 things of soil containing 15% sand. Okay, so one has a little bit more sand in it than the other. So the other amount of soil could be like, um, dirt or peat or clay or something, minerals, whatever. The other 65% of the two, things of soil, right? So here's what it is. If it has 35% sand, that means 35% or 0.35, because 35% is 0.35 as a decimal. You have to turn percents into decimals to do math. You can't do math with percents. Not really. You kind of can, but I really don't recommend it unless you really know what you're doing. Um, so yeah, turn it into a decimal. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So 35%, aka 0.35. So 35% of 2. That's what that is, right? Of means multiply. Of means multiply. So 2 meters of soil containing 35%. So 35% of 2, right? So that's going to be a certain amount. That's going to tell us how much of the 2 is actually just sand, right? And then what we're going to do with that is we're going to add that to the other amount. So 15% sand, that's 0.15 of 6. That's going to tell me how much of the 6 things of soil, how much of that is actually sand. I just want to know what's the sand part, like how much sand we're dealing with here. So that's what this gives me, is 0.35 times 2 plus 0.15 times 6. That's going to tell me how much sand, like the amount of sand there is. So if that's the amount of sand, let's say it's like 5, like five things of sand, right? Well, that's not going to be the sand content of the mixture. It kind of is, and they're kind of not wording this super well, but what they're actually asking for is the percent. So they want the percent of sand in the mixture. Well, percent is just the amount out of the total. So if we want to get back to percent, then what we have to do is we have to say, okay, well, this is going to be the amount. All of that is the amount of sand in the mixture out of the total amount of sand. Well, the total amount of sand would just be 2 plus 6. That's the total amount of sand. If you're going to mix 2 things of soil with 6 things of soil, you're going to have 8 things of soil, right? So there it is, right? It's not really an equation. It's really just, we got to do the math now. So assuming you can use a calculator, you would just, type it in at this point. Just be kind of careful typing it in, of course, whenever you're typing it into the calculator. Calculators, I've never seen a calculator make a mistake. So if you make a mistake on a calculator, it's probably you just typed it in wrong. Like I've never seen a calculator not work. If you have, let me know in the comments if you'd like to share that with me, I guess. But yeah, as far as I know, that doesn't happen. So anyways, if you're typing it in, just be careful. But if you don't, if you can't, right? So if you've already typed it in and you've already got the answer, awesome. You can move on to the next one. You can scrub ahead a little bit in the video. But this next part here, I'm going to do this by hand for those of you guys who, have that teacher who's like, no, calculators weren't invented when I was born, so you can't use calculators either. So we're going to do it by hand for that person. So 0.35 times 2. Right, so it's if you ignore the decimal place, it's just 35 times 2. Right, 35 times 2 is 70. So 0.35 times 2 would be 0.7. Okay, it's double 0.35. Double 0.35. And then 0.15 times 6. Again, we're going to ignore the decimal for a second. So 15 times 6. Here's a little trick. If you do 15 times 2, that's 30. And then you would do 30 times 3, since 6 is 2 times 3. So double it and then multiply it by 3. 30 times 3 is 90. So 15 times 6 is 90. Then 0.15 times 6 would be 0.9. Okay. And if that was a little bit confusing, trying to do that in your head like that, that's okay. I've just, been doing stuff in my head for a little bit. So, but, if you keep practicing doing it like that, I guarantee you'll be able to do it in your head in no time. And then that's divided by 8 there. And then once we get that, let's see if I can move this down a little bit here. 0.7 plus 0.9. 7 plus 9 is 16, so this would be 1.6 divided by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 20, so this would be 0.2 or 20%. So either of those is probably fine. I already looked at the answers because I worked some of these out earlier, and they have 20%. That's the answer they're looking for. I know that's not worded really well. The question is not really that clear about what they want, but that's what they want. They want percent, right? So hopefully your teacher specifies what they mean when they say, what's the sand content? Or something like that. Like whatever they're saying in class, just pay attention to how what they're saying and what they're usually like meaning when they say that, because sometimes it's not always clear, because math people they just don't know how to English sometimes. It's okay. Math people just don't English. And actually what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to do the odds. So you'll see it in the video. And I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the video, but I'm just going to do the odds. It'll be in the description, of course. So if you've already clicked on it, then you'll already know the dealio. But yeah, just going to work out the odds for today, because that might be all I have time for. All right, I'm going to change to green here because I like to keep changing the color. 5 fluid ounces. So again, remember, units don't matter unless the units are different. 11 fluid ounces, 5 fluid ounces. They're both fluid ounces, so just ignore the units. They don't exist. They don't matter. Okay, I'm going to scrub it out here. Boop, 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 boop. All done. Okay, so 5 of a 2% mixed with 11 of a 66%. Find the concentration of the new mixture. This is exactly like number 1. All right, so I'm not going to explain it out. I'm just going to kind of write it. 5 of a 2%. Okay, 2%, remember, as a decimal, I'm going to put a leading 0 this time. As a decimal, this would be 0.02. Right, you take the number and you take the decimal place, which is right here, and you move it 2 spaces a la izquierda, to the left. 5 times 0.02 was mixed with, right, mixed with plus 11 of a 66%, 0.66 alcohol solution. Find the concentration of the new mixture. So that's going to be the concentration. They want the amount of that. So we divide it by the total. 5 plus 11 is 16. So that's 16. And I'm going to go down just a little bit here so I have some extra space to work this out. 5 times 0.02. It's going to be 0.1, I believe. Right? Because 5 times 2 is 10. Right? So 5 times 0.02 would be 5 times that amount, or 0.02 plus 0.02 plus 0.02 plus 0.02 plus another 0.02. 5.02s, which would make 0.1. So that's how I got that. And again, if you're using a calculator, remember at this point you can just type it in. I forgot to put a leading 0 right here. I just don't like putting leading zeros because it's just extra work, and I don't normally do it. I just figured I'd do it on this problem just because, why not? But I don't normally put leading zeros. It's just more work. And as long as you clearly put the decimal place like down at the bottom, and then the dot for the multiply is like clearly in the middle, as long as it's obvious, then you're good to go. It wasn't as obvious for my 11 and my 0.66 over here, but it's all good. So 0.1, and then 11 times 0.66. I don't know if I feel like doing that in my head. You can work it out off to the side. Here, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's fine. I won't be lazy. I was gonna be lazy and put in the calculator, but it's all good. So let's do it. So it'd be what, 6 and 6, right? And then carry a 0, and then 6 and 6 again. So nothing to carry. That's good. And then that's 6. That's 12. And then that's a 7. And then there's 2 decimal places, right? So if there's 2 decimal places, I put those 2 decimal places back in, and then check it to make sure it makes sense. Always, always be checking. Like, it's kind of funny. It just made me think of always be closing ABC. Always be checking ABC. The ABC of math, not ABC of business or sales or whatever. Always be checking. So what I mean is, like, 11 times 0.66. Half of 11 is like 5-ish, right? It's like 5-ish, right? So 0.66 is a little bit more. It's 2/3, right? So it's a significantly more than 50%, but not like a lot more. And it's not like 3/4, which would be 75%, which would be 0.75. So if you think about it, half of 11 is like 5.5, right? So it should be a little more than that, and it is 7.26. So that answer makes sense, and that tells us that we're probably on the right track here. All right, and then we're going to take that and divide by 16. So we're going to add 0.1 to that. Well, it's not that hard to add 0.1 to that, fortunately. All we have to do is just say, okay, well, then this is 7.36 over 16. And then we want to divide that. Okay, so if we divide that, this is really tough to do by hand. I really hope your teacher does not make you do this. But if you are still watching this as of right now, that probably means that either you're kind of just listening to it in the background. Kudos to you to double task like that, because I can't do that. Or you actually have to work these out by hand, and then, apologize. But if you are watching this right now and you can use a calculator for class, go ahead and scrub ahead. I don't care. Won't hurt my feelings. Okay, so anyway, 16 times something is 73. What would that be? Well, 16 times 5 would be 80. So it's got to be a little less than that. So it's got to be a 4, let's say. Okay, 16 times 4, that's 64. Okay, I just kind of knew that. And then that would be 9. So that's 96, and I believe that's 8. 8? 9? 9 times 6? 54. 5, 4, 9, 1, 4. No, that's way too high. No, was it 8, 7, 6, 6? Maybe it's a 6. I think it goes in evenly. Yeah. 6, 3, 6. Yeah. That's 96. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure that went in evenly. Okay, so there we go, 46. And then remember, we're dividing, so we have to put the decimal places back in. So we have to put the decimal place back in, 0.46, which is 46%. So either one, but like I said, I looked at the answers already, and they want percents, not decimals. So, all right, on to number 5. Here's number 5. Emily mixed together 9 gallons of brand A fruit drink and 8 gallons of brand B fruit drink. Good for you, Emily. Mixing together your fruit drinks like a boss. Okay, again, gallons. We don't need to convert anything, so we can just ignore the units. Boom, boom, boom. That's gone. If you hear that noise in the background, that's our AC. Emily mixed together 9 of brand A and 8 of brand B, which contains 48%. So this time they didn't tell us how much percent the 9 has, but we're going to set it up the same way. It's going to be 9 times something, right? 9 times something plus 8 times 0.48 over the total, right? Over the total, which would be 9 plus 8, which is 17. Okay, so we can't actually figure out what this is right now because it has an x in it. But remember, the total is going to be, well, the amount of stuff, right? It's the amount out of the total that's going to tell us how much the blend is. find the percent of fruit juice in brand A if the mixture contained 30% fruit juice. So it'd be 0.3. Remember, don't use percents, use decimals. So 30%, which is 0.3. So that means it's equal to 0.3. Now we have an equation to solve. This just got a little bit harder. Before, for number 1 and number 3, we only had to solve an expression. Now we have to solve an equation. So normally you try to add or subtract to both sides, but since this is one big giant happy fraction, we got to get rid of the fraction first. So we got to multiply 0.3 by 17. And also, I just realized that I'm getting tired of doing things by hand. So if you have to do all of these by hand, I mean, you just do it by hand, right? So I showed you how to do number 1 and number 3 by hand. I'm kind of just bored doing things by hand, because for most people watching this, I would imagine you can probably do this on the calculator. So I just multiplied both sides by 17. If I multiply both sides by 17, it cancels, right? So times 17, and I get 5.1, right? Which makes sense if you think about it, right? So 0.3 times 17, it's going to be about a third of 17. 17 is about 15. 15 is about, a third of 15 would be 5. 5, 5, 5. Right, so that makes sense, right? 0.3 is a little less than a third, but 17 is a little more than 15. So yeah, it makes sense. Okay, and then we have 9x plus 8 times 0.48. Well, let's see. 8 times 0.48 is 3.84. 3.84. Okay, and let's think about it. 8 times 0.48. 0.48 is basically 0.5, which is half. Half of 8 is 4. A little less than 4 is 3.84. Yeah, that makes sense. Remember, always be checking. Okay, now we just want to, now that we got rid of the giant fraction, we can start back from the reverse of PEMDAS. If you haven't seen me talk about the reverse of PEMDAS, PEMDAS is the order of operations. And so the opposite of that is SADMEP. Right? So when you're solving, you actually want to kind of do PEMDAS backwards. You want to do SADMEP. Or if you use G grouping instead of P parentheses, then it's SADMEG, like a sad megalodon. So anyways, that's all of that. The explanation for all of that and where I got that and how to use those things is in other videos in this same series. This is a series on Algebra 1 worksheets that you're watching right now. So there are plenty of other videos in the series where I work out all the algebra worksheets that I could possibly find on the internet so that you have all the answers to them. All right, so hopefully that that is helpful to you. Let's see. So 9x equals 1.26. I'm going to divide by 9, and I get 0.14. X equals 0.14, aka 14%. Don't forget to turn it back into a percent. So really, technically, either one is fine, but again, we're only doing the odds, and they want everything as a percent instead of a decimal. Okay, so we're basically done. There's only 10 of these problems, so we've only got 2 more. Number 7 is going to be probably the hardest one. It's going to be a lot like number 5, so it's not going to be too much harder than 5, really. Number 9 actually is going to be the easiest one. I looked ahead a little bit, worked out some of these, and number 9 actually is going to be easy if you do it the easy way. If you do it the easy way, I'll show you what I mean when we get to number 9. Or if you are curious, you can scrub ahead to number 9. Go for it. But let's look. So 7 liters of an acid solution was mixed with 3 liters of a 15% acid solution. So when I first read this one, I was thinking like, oh, 7 liters of an acid. They don't say the percent. Does that mean it's 100% acid? Dun dun dun. Like, it would just melt your skin if you poured it on your skin. And actually, no, that's not the case. Well, yes, I mean, acid will burn your skin, so don't play with acid. But they don't say what the percent is, so that actually means that we don't know what the percent is, not that it's 100%. So I don't know if you were maybe thinking that too, but that's not the case. It's some percent, right? So we're going to set this up the same way. 7 liters, and again, liters. I don't need to worry about the liters thing. You only need to worry about the unit. You only need to worry about the units if the units are different. Right? So 7 times some percent that we don't know, x, plus 3 times a 0.15 solution divided by the total. 7 plus 3 is 10, divided by 10. And that's going to equal, it's going to make a 29% acid solution, so 0.29. Right? So this actually is pretty much the exact same as number 5. Actually, I think that number 5 was harder because we have a 10 here. 10s are pretty easy math. I don't know. It's about the same, I guess. Más o menos. So notice that the setup is pretty much exactly the same. There's not really a lot of different ways to set these up. You either set it up where you don't really have an equation, just like something to simplify a little bit, or you have this, which is an equation to solve. So here we go. We're going to multiply both sides by 10 first. Multiply by 10. Multiply, multiply, cross out. 7x plus, what is 3.3 times 0.15 would be 0.45. So you can either do that in a calculator or you can just kind of memorize it. The reason why I have that one memorized is because like when you put batteries into things, double A's and triple A's and stuff, they're like 1.5 volts. So just doing that growing up, having to put those in there, I'm like, oh, this is like 3 volts if I have 2 of them, or like 4.5 volts if I have 3 of them. So I don't know, those sorts of those 15 multiples got stuck in my head growing up, putting batteries and things. So if that is helpful, think about batteries, or like 25s, think about money, right? Like quarters and stuff. So anyways, we get that. 0.29 times 10 is 2.9. You just move the decimal place over 1. Then we would subtract the 0.45. So 7x equals 2.45. And I'm kind of doing this in my head, kind of not, because I already solved this before. So then divide by 7. And that's going to go in evenly. I don't remember how many times that goes in, though. 2.45 divided by 7, 0.35. So it does go in kind of evenly, meaning, if something goes in evenly, technically it's like not a decimal to start with, but it's kind of going to go in evenly if it's like a decimal, but it doesn't get to be like a worse decimal, right? So it was like 2 decimal places and it stayed 2 decimal places. So it, in my opinion, it's kind of like it went in evenly. So that's what I mean by that. So 35%, 0.35, 35% is right there. And we're on the last thing here now. Okay. Number 9. Remember I was saying this is actually like the easiest thing. So before I get to this, in the description below, if you're wondering what's in the description, it's pretty much the same thing for all the videos that are in this series, which is just, like, hey, like if you want to not miss math problems, if you want to get the right answers to math problems no matter what class you're in, there's a cool guide that I made. It's a free PDF. It's on my website. I have that as a free resource, and I'm working on more and more free resources. I want to be able to have people just be able to go to my website, myersmathematics.com, and find a ton of free resources, like basically just books worth of resources. Like you can just go there and learn any topic, and it has the notes all like laid out there for you. I'm working on building up something like that. But in the meantime, I have a guide that I made on just generally like how to not miss math problems. So if you're interested in that, you can go grab that for free on my website, myersmathematics.com. Let's go ahead and knock out this last problem, though. A metallurgist, that's a real word, needs to make 12.4 pounds of an alloy containing 50% gold. 50% gold. He's going to melt and combine one metal that's 60% gold with another metal that is 40% gold. How much of each should he use? Okay, the reason why this is the easiest one, which is kind of weird because it's number 9, right? It's like the second to last problem. The reason why this is easy is because of the numbers, right? So for one, he needs to make this much, right? So it's pounds. We need to know what the amounts are. But check this out. We want to combine 40% and 60% and get 50%. We need to get 50, exactly half, and we have 40 and we have a 60. Well, if you have a 40 and a 60, you smash them together and you get 50. Right? Like if you have 5 grams, or in this case pounds, like 5 pounds of 40%, 5 pounds of 60%, put them together, you're going to have 10 pounds of 50%, right? If you have exactly the same amount of 40 and 60, you put them together, you're going to have exactly 50%. That's why this question, I can show you the setup for it if you want, but let me know in the description if that's something you would want to see. I'll put that into the next video where I do the evens. But you don't need to do that. Because if it's 40 and 60, if it's like the amounts that we have to work with, if their average is what we're trying to get to, then you just do equal parts. So we just divide 12.4 12.4 by 2. We just want half of 12.4. Well, half of 12 is 6. Half of 4 is 2. So 6.2 of each. 6.2 of each. That's the answer. And of course, if you want units, right, you put pounds in there. 6.2 pounds of each. That's it. 6.2 of the 40, 6.2 of the 60. All right, and that's it. We're done. So also, if you hadn't noticed before, there is actually all the answers in these worksheets. If you only got the first 2 pages of this worksheet, then you actually only got half of the worksheet, because the other half of the worksheet is down here where they have all the answers in red. Look at that. Crazy. So you can do that with any of these worksheets. Any of these worksheets that are by Kuta software, they'll have the answers in them. So if you notice it says Kuta software at the top, they'll always have the answers in it. So you can just scroll down, like Google the worksheet, right? If you were given a paper worksheet and didn't have the answers in it, just Google it, and you can find the answers that way. That's why teachers normally ask you to show your work for these. That way you can get full credit. You're not just looking it up. But I would recommend knowing what the answers are to these, right? So you can, obviously watch this video to get the answers to these, but also you can go and just Google it, and that way you'll have the answers, and that way you know if you're getting the right answer, because if you're learning this stuff, you want to know if you're getting the right answer, so you're not doing it the wrong way over and over and over again. So anyways, that was my sage advice for today. So I hope that was helpful, and hope this video has been helpful, and I'll see you in another video real soon.